Hi everybody, this is Brooks Lindsay. I'm the founder and editor of Debatepedia.org. Just wanted to walk you through one of our debate articles that we have on a college football playoff, which is a proposal that's been milling around for about 5 years. A lot of different people have been coming behind it more recently. For example, President Obama, right after he was inaugurated in 2009, came out in support of the idea. He actually said he would want to throw his weight around, quote, throw his weight around behind this idea. And actually, legislation was proposed in Congress in 2009 by someone called Orrin Hatch, who's a senator from Utah, to create a college football playoff. And actually, for him, it was partly because he's from Utah, and apparently the Utah team didn't make it into the final national title game of the BCS, the Bowl Championship Series, and I think this was 2008. And they were basically third, but they had a legitimate claim to say, hey, you know, we were probably deserving of being in this national title. Give us a shot. So there's a lot of controversy over the BCS and the way that it works at the very top level. Can it reveal who the best team is? Is this a legitimate process? The problem is that you only have one game, this one national title game, and it's determined, the two teams that come into play are determined by a computerized system, so a lot of kind of analysis of statistics, and regular season performance, of course, and coaches' ratings, apparently. But a lot of people say, well, why are we having this computer system and this kind of regular season rankings, complicated stuff, determine this outcome? Why don't we have a playoff where these teams can prove it on the field that they're the better squad? And especially for the top 4-5 teams, this seems like a pretty important thing. So a playoff could help us determine more legitimately who the national champion is. But a lot of people ask, how important really is determining a national champion? They say, just basically, it's great that in the BCS, a lot of teams can win. It's a better thing than having in a playoff just one team winning and every single other team being a loser. It would be better if you have the fans all celebrating from 30 teams that win in a bowl, all the players celebrating from those 30 teams, and potentially there's more money in the BCS, a lot of people argue, because you have one game where all of the energy of fans is packed into that one game. Advertisers, obviously, as a result, benefit a lot from that focus on that one game. And generally, there's a challenge in a playoff with fans being able to travel around to all these different games. So I think there's something to say for this. And obviously, the BCS is an incredibly monetarily successful entity. So why would you want to change anything? But the fact that the BCS is incredibly successful as a business does not mean that a college football playoff couldn't also be successful or more successful. And so a lot of people say, hey, more games are going to be played. If it's a 16-team playoff, which is the main proposal, more games are played. You can actually co-opt the bowl system into the playoffs in some way. So maybe the final couple of games could be some of the big name bowls in the playoffs, so the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, whatever. But you have more games. So if you're able to fill the stands, you can make more money potentially. And the argument for filling the stands is that this is only, again, 16 teams. We're not talking about college basketball where it's a much larger number of teams. Only 16, so a pretty small tournament. So you can probably fill the seats. Plus, a tournament has the advantage of brackets and interesting matchups between underdogs and titans, for example. In college basketball, that's one of the really cool things that happens. For example, George Mason, a couple of years back in the NCAA tournament, was playing against these unbelievably strong teams, and this is George Mason coming from nowhere, and they're beating big-name teams. So if you could see that in college football, it'd be kind of cool. Instead of just having the number 12 match up with number 13, and the number 2 with number 3, the blah, 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 match up a couple of different level squads and see if there can be some upsets. That kind of interest, that kind of new interest, could generate more TV audiences, more interest, again, more brackets, maybe more betting, although we're not talking about that as economically beneficial, but, just more interest, more excitement. So I think there's something there. Another thing that I was interested to see in compiling this pro-con article on Debatepedia was the whole debate about what about the students and their bodies, because football is a pretty rough sport. So in a playoff, you're playing more games than you would actually be playing in the BCS system. BCS system, it's just you play one more game than the regular season. But in the playoff, you would play potentially 4 games if you were going all the way to championship, or you'd play 3 or 2. And is that too many more than just 1? I think there's something there, but I would also say that you could cut 1 game out of the regular season to compensate if you wanted to. And I would also just say that the NFL, where teams are hitting even harder, has a playoff. The important thing to do would be to space out each game, so there's a week, in between, so that the players can recover, versus maybe a couple of days in the basketball tournament. But obviously that can be done. Players can survive just fine. They obviously survive in the regular season just fine. And then the last thing is that people say, hey, what about the academics? This playoff would take more time away from students in the classroom. Well, that's true, except again, you compare it to every single other college sport that has a playoff, and nobody's complaining about these players being taken away from their academics for that small period of time. So it's kind of a bad argument. Yeah, there's a lot more to say. I'd like to just leave it at this for now. I'm trying to get into doing these YouTube videos more. I hope it's useful, but probably you should go check out the article on Debatepedia itself, because it has a more in-depth breakdown of all the different arguments that these different scholars and experts are making in the debate. And basically we frame the major quotations in the debate. Alright, this is Brooks Lindsay, founder of Debatepedia. Take care. Bye.